Welcome back, everyone, to the Emotional Sobriety Workshop. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic addict. Hello. So our next speaker has 22 years clean off of drugs. And I met this person in the recovery store. And man, when you can be out of your own way long enough, you start to feel, instead of a trauma bond, you start to feel like a spirit bond immediately with people. You just recognize them. And when we first connected, you know, like how some people, they'll hug you, maybe side hug you, maybe pat you on the back and then dismount? We would hug as like an embrace, as if we have been best friends forever and hadn't seen each other for decades. And we would get recharged. It would be like a soul-to-soul namaste connection every time. You know, sometimes it was the highlight of when that person was going to go to a meeting. And when I would hear him speak, man, he had clever ways of saying things and had such wisdom as he was going along because he was willing to keep looking at himself. It's so funny, like before recovery, how the people that you're attracted to are not the same people. I mean, the same people, but for different reasons. You're attracted to people who can own their own shit. You know, you're attracted to people who can look you in the eye and be honest with you. You're attracted to people that you feel a genuine, unconditional acceptance with. And so, Kevin, will you come up and share for 20 minutes on emotional sobriety?
Hello, family. I'm an addict named Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Oh, what an honor. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sticks, wherever he was. Thank you, Kira. It's funny. Kerry said something to me outside. I'm like, man, good to see you. This is great. He said, man, this is rich. Yeah. And that word hit me, man. And I like, rich is like rich in minerals, rich in vitamins, it's not a negative word. It's a word that means there's a lot of stuff here, right? And that hit me, man. Look at my arm. Look at my arm. Look at my arm. What is that? You can't fake that. That word rich hit me, Carrie. And that's how I feel, man. I feel, and I related to everything. I got something out of it. And that connection that you talked about, man, I heard so many good things. I don't even know where to start. It's like, you don't come in with a plan, you hear stuff and you're like, yeah, I want to talk about that. Oh no, I want to talk about that. Oh, Lisa just said something. What did you say? Internal pharmacy. I'm taking that shit today. That was like, man, I never heard that before. I love that, internal pharmacy. And that's my struggle today, but it wasn't when I got here, right? And I heard, oopsie. Uh-oh. Is there a tightener? There we go. But you know, it's funny, man. Emotional sobriety is... I was thinking about the definition of words because when I first got here, my sponsor made me go in a dictionary, right? A lot of us do. I didn't know. I thought I knew everything. And I looked up emotional and I looked up sobriety. And one of the things for sobriety was clear-headed, right? And emotional clear-headedness out there, that's an oxymoron. If I walk on an airplane and they say, attention, the pilot is emotional. I'm not feeling good about that flight, right? But if they say, don't worry, he's clear-headed. It's an opposite. But in here, we understand that. And that's the richness of what we do in here. That's the stuff that, when I came here, I used to think this was the last house on the block. But today, and here in Curry, I'm reminded it's the closest house to God. We are at the head of the class. This is the front of the line, but I didn't feel that way when I got here because of everything that was said today. The one thing, Sticks, is it Sticks or Strix? Sticks. Love you, man. Thank you for that. You said a lot of stuff that was rich for me and that focus on the similarities instead of focusing on what we're doing wrong, right? Focus on, so what is the similarities today? I know that everyone in this room with me shares desperation. I know that everyone in this room, when I walk in here, despite what my disease says about inner fellowship and language and words like Sticks was sharing about, the desperation that we felt is the same. So whatever I share about my desperation, I know it's going to be welcomed here. I know I'm in a safe space. I know that recovery is the same. It's the head of the class. It's the front of the line. It's the closest house to God. And check it out. If the world had 10% of what we try to do here, imagine if politics had this. We don't care your money. We don't care your color, your sexuality. We just care about what, I mean, could you imagine, right? We're at the head of the class. This is the front of the line. It's the close. We stumbled so far back, we went to the front of the line. The line is a circle. And you know, I didn't come here. I came here, you know, I applaud you. Anyone that has the ability to survive. First of all, if you can survive the substance, right, that's our first magic trick. That's the first miracle. The second one is harder because now the Band-Aid is off of Kevin and I have to look at Kevin. And when you said that, man, and it got me in touch with something that somebody said to me early on, and it was, Kevin, your success here is going to be directly related to how willing you are to look at you. Come on. And I wasn't willing. And the Band-Aid was evidence. The Band-Aid was evidence. Sex, drugs, alcohol, relationships, hiding. I had a guy say, I hadn't seen him in a while, and I got clean in Philly. I hadn't seen him in a couple meetings, and he said, Kev, what's up? Where do you hide? And I just laughed, man, because that's something you can't say that out there. I can't go to work and be like, hey, where do you hide? You know what I mean? We got a language here that transcends fellowships. We got a language here that transcends out there. We got a language, man. I hide in my house in the air conditioning in front of HBO. That's where I hide. And I can tell you that sitting here, all I thought about was God. I heard that word. I thought about emotional. I thought about sobriety. I thought about internal pharmacy or whatever you said. But in front of HBO, I'm not thinking about any of that stuff. And that's okay. HBO is cool too, right? Because I get to go do that, right? That's cool. I'm not beating myself up for that today as much as I used to be. But like for me, the self-loathing, that second miracle, when the drugs come away, right? And that second miracle is like, we are like, I know if you just put it down, I know what you're looking at. I know, like for me, it was Normandy. It was Normandy Beach when the drugs left. I woke up and it was just bodies. And I was holding the gun and I just threw it. Said, wasn't me. Wasn't me. I didn't do that. I don't have this trail of bodies behind me of the people that I hurt. How can I, and I love what you said about like that crying was bad, that's out there. Anger is bad, that's out there. In here, we're like, anger is a part of the thing. Crying is a part of the thing. Judgment is a part of the thing. But what happens, if you stay here long enough, judgment will become evaluation. I will evaluate the shit out of you. But I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge because that's what we do. That's how we stay alive in that evaluation. I'm a picture hanging across the wall from you, and I can't see my colors. I'm in the gallery hanging, and I rely on you to say, Kev, that blue is starting to fade, brother. That blue is starting to fade. Your reds are looking a little pink. You got to get in here. You got to get back into it. I was so scared to look at me because I was the worst person on the planet Earth. Nobody hated Kevin more than Kevin. To this day, that's true. And I've been on the cover of Recovery Times. I've been on the front page. Because if you, listen, it's one thing to survive the first miracle. It's another thing to survive the second miracle, which is just looking at Kevin. The third miracle is being here for a minute, being lazy, and messing up. Because I don't have the drugs to blame. I've been here, I'm messed up with 14 years clean, so big I got on the front page. I had to crawl in here. I was judged in group chats. I was judged on Facebook. I was judged in WhatsApp. I was judged in whispered circles. I was made. I got made in here, right? And then what did I do? I listened to people who also did that, who also came in here clean and messed up, right? And then I remember when I was going through it, and my old head from Philly said to me, he said, Kev, let me tell you something, man. The leading cause of relapse is clean time. The leading cause of relapse is sobriety. And I didn't know what he meant when he said it until I messed around with 14 years. And I wound up on the cover. I wound up judged. The only person that was judging me really was me. That was the one that was keeping me from this process. That was the one keeping me from doing it. When I got 10 years in Philadelphia and came to Vegas, Disease said, don't go to a meeting. 10 years is a good graduation number. I had 12 steps in my life. That was 10 years and 12 steps, finishing the 12th step, I was done. But the gravity of this thing, like you ever be on a treadmill, get off and feel like you're still walking? This process will do that to you. So I'm sitting in my house. I had 10 years of Philadelphia treadmill. I got here and I'm like, no, I need to unpack. I got the cable company coming tomorrow. I'm not going to see what Vegas is doing with recovery yet. But I did. I left my boxes taped closed. I didn't even have toilet paper out. And I went and found a meeting. And not because of me, because of the legs still moving on the treadmill. The gravity of what had been done for 10 years. Now, last year, May, I celebrated the amount of recovery that I had in years of using. That was a milestone for me. Because for the whole time, I had used longer than I had done this thing. And it doesn't mean anything other than it's just one of the things that we celebrate, right? We celebrate everything. We clap for everything. We clap for, I just got beat up. We clap for, I just beat somebody up. We hug for, I just got fired. We hug harder for, I want to kill myself. Not out there. Not at the actual back of the line. Man, if you would have gave me $2 million when I had one day clean, I wouldn't be here today. So that's not the answer, right? And Kira, you talked about the laughter, the real laughter when people were coming here, like not the cocaine laughter, not the laughter because I know you had some more, and I wanted to laugh like, hey, that's so funny, man, you funny. Where's that bag? Like really people, in spite of the horror show that they thought they were, showing up and laughing about the horror show. Right. What medicine is that? Before I even took a step, I was laughing at the horror show. I was celebrating the pain. Now you will see a lot of people do. I remember one time I went to a meeting and we got yelled at for laughing. Because there's always a soldier in here that says, well, this is serious, we die in here. And it's true, we do die in here. But any comedian will tell you when they're defending their right against getting canceled, because they're saying the shit that, anybody will say, man, we gotta laugh. Because that's the antidote. That's love. Love is in that. Now, I'm not hiding from that anymore. I'm not hiding. I will tell you what I did. Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Hey, Carrie, I've been through something last week. I'm over it now. It's good. I didn't call you when I was going through it, but I might do it later. Because emotional means I'm not clear-headed. Anger means I can't see. But it's part of who we are. Somebody told me I just got married. I'm 57 years old. I got married. I've been married 1 year. First time, last time. Just for today. I don't have my recovery date tattooed on my arm, but I would just for today. I don't have a problem with it. I would because I feel like it's never going to leave just for today. But when I remember, here's another one. All these quotes are coming up because of how rich this is. Another quote somebody said was, hey, Kev, if you think you're spiritual, go spend a week with your mom and dad. And man, that one hit me. Every time somebody comes back in here from their family, we're like, I'm sorry, how was it? Did you survive it? Did you make it? You know, but I didn't understand. And then I had, 22 years of the process to understand what that sentence meant. And it changed over the years. The book is the same, but it changes every day for me. Every word I hear. I heard the same phrase last year, but now it's new again. I saw that same movie, but now I understand it differently. Not understand it, period. Understand it just for today. I remember God was a bad word for me when I first got here. It was a real bad word, right? And when it stopped being a bad word was, I was kicking. I was in the front seat of a car being driven by a nun to a rehab, yelling at her because of God. She hadn't even said God to me. She said, first 3 steps. She was trying to tell me about the first 3 steps. I remember this like it was yesterday. And she said, all right, look, check it out. First of all, I didn't even say God, right? But how about this? How about step 1 is, you can't. Can you get behind you can't? And I'm like, I can. I can get behind I can't. Because my can got me in the front seat of a car kicking drugs with a nun. So I knew that I couldn't, right? She said, you have a first step in your life. She said, you want to double down? Let's go for 2. She said, how about we can? She said, where I'm driving you right now is a we. I'm getting chills. I'm going to cry. She said, I'm driving you to the we right now. And because you're in this car and not trying to get out at a red light, you must think we can. She said, you got a third step and a second step in that last sentence. I can't, we can, let's do it. A nun told me that. I said, I ain't going to be mad about the word God anymore. And that was it. And I was done because I got behind that. It spoke to me in a language that I could understand. Just like the most spiritual people we've ever met or haven't met or heard about or read about. And man, I did know that this would work for you. I knew it wouldn't work for me. But you guys said you would love me until I would love myself. And you did. You backed it up. You came through with that promise. With the hugs that Lisa was talking about, those real hugs. And, I came from, my dad was born in 1936. You talked about generational trauma. No, 29. My mom was born in 36. Buddha and Gandhi were not, and God and Jesus, they were not on the word. They were not in the house. It was shut up, stop doing what you're doing because you're wrong and you're lazy and you're a failure, and get in here and start being miserable like your father. Stop dreaming on that hill looking at clouds, trying to be creative and in touch with that childhood innocence, and get in here and learn how to be miserable. So you can make money. Because that was their God. Because that's all they knew, and God bless them. They did the best with what they had. That's all. They weren't trying to hurt me. If I wake up and murder 100 people in a McDonald's, I didn't wake up saying, what's my worst plan? Let me go through my worst plan book and enact my worst plan today. I never did that in my years of using. I never did that clean. I never woke up and said, what's my worst plan? But yet I still hurt people. Yet I still made a mess. Yet I still, and that's why we love you. Because we know it's not your worst plan. And it was even deep. I remember my sponsor said early on, I'm like, sponsor, what can I do? I got all the books. I'm highlighting. I'm showing up to every meeting. I got that pink cloud. I'm super happy because the drugs are gone. And he said, I want you to find the person you hate in this room tonight. And I want you to get their number. And that was like almost 80% of the room. He said, pick one. And guess who I picked? I picked the loudest, best talking, shiniest game show host. I didn't pick the wallflower that didn't know how to speak. I didn't pick the shy person. I picked me. And I didn't know that, but I'm going to cry. He was trying to show me that the work that I do to clean this up is because I need to not hate myself at you. That was deep. My sponsor he was balling with this. That was some final boss video game level shit. He took me right to he took me to the final year of studies and said, this is where we're headed. If you want it. Because if I'm not okay with you, I got to look at me. So what does that mean? 100% of my suffering for me comes from my thinking. That's crazy. That's not out there. That's not out there. If you punch me in the face, that's not suffering. That's pain. Suffering is this motherfucker's back in this room after he punched me in the face. Do you know who I think I am? He punched me in the face last week. That's suffering. 5 months ago, he punched me in the face. 6 years ago, that motherfucker punched me in the face. That's suffering. I'm sorry to curse. I'm from NA. We're dirty. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to suffer. I want to, turn the other cheek is like, it doesn't mean, like, listen, if I walk into a monastery and those warrior monks and I start smashing their sacred shit, they're going to put me down with a quickness in some kind of crazy kung fu ass headlock and throw me out, right? The difference between them doing that and me doing that in here is they're going to do it without hatred for me. They're going to protect me from me and protect their space. Like if you got bed bugs and you're in recovery, you're not getting in my car. If you're in if you haven't been to the doctor yet and you're coughing, I might stand back here a little bit. But I'm not going to do it with judgment. I have to protect what you gave me. No is a word that is learned. It's hard and it's beautiful. I can't wait to not go to the thing that's bad for me. I can't wait to say, you know what, I would love to, but I'm doing anything else. That was one of the gifts that came. I said yes to everything, like you said. I said yes to everything because I wasn't good enough to be saying no. No is another goosebump, right? That was a powerful gift, man. So that lucidity, time takes time. And what I thought I knew, man, all the cliches, man, I love them. And I love hearing I just know less and less. And as I get closer to death, I know I'm just like, my parents, as they marched to death, got meaner and sadder and ornerier. And every one of their friends were locked out one by one. They were judged out one by one. I watched my parents do it. Generational curses, right? How do we break it? Right here. This is the solution. This is the solution to the entire world's dilemma. Love ourselves and then put your face mask on first and then help somebody else with their face mask on the airplane, right? That's what we do here. What am I doing? All right. Thank you very much for letting me share.
Fantastic. So our next speaker has 38 years in AA and NA and CA and is a pastor. There's never been a time I have not loved not just what he says, but the way that he says it. You will, I'm sure, appreciate and gobble up what he's about to say because I'm so grateful that you came and you're willing to participate. Evidently, my stripping days are not over. And what's funny is nobody told me. I talked with my hands and it went pop and nobody. That's okay. Pastor Kerry, please come up and share with us.
I'm Kerry and I'm an addict, an alcoholic, a sinner saved by grace. Yeah. I have 13 days, 2 months, 38 years clean. Right on. and sober. And, I say it that way for a reason. I think somebody said, the biggest enemy to recovery is time. Right? And there was a gentleman that had a lot of years sober, lots, and he relapsed. And then when they asked him why he relapsed, he said, I had too many years and not enough days. See, this is good to see you, Kenny, EC, everybody here. See, this is a daily reprieve. Now, you would say, like, contingent on mention my spiritual conditioning, right? So you'd say, well, why do you go to all those fellowships? Well, that's how I keep my emotional sobriety. So why I go to church? That's why I go to CA, NA, AA. I do that because it works. It helps me maintain my spiritual conditioning. So I've had the same sponsor for 38 years. He got 40 years, I got 38, by the grace of God. And that man knows everything about me. Now I have some sponsees that also know everything about me. Right? The good, the bad, the ugly. Right? See, one thing I've found out over the years is that spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Right? We didn't become addicted in one day. We're not going to recover in one day. So remember what? Easy does it. Right? The ones who attend meetings regularly, we've never seen relapse. The ones who live the program, we've never seen relapse. The ones that come to meetings regularly stay clean. So it's like peanut butter and jelly. You don't have a Reese's cup unless you have the peanut butter and the chocolate. So that's James right there. That's my partner James. Yeah. So understanding that emotional sobriety, or what I like to call spiritual maturity, it's a process. It's a process. That process, right, is over time, not overnight. And depending on how much trauma and tragedy that you had to endure before coming here, and it might be sometimes quickly, but sometimes what? Slowly. But it always materializes. We work for it. So some are definitely sicker than others. And I can't judge my insides by your what? Outsides. So then when I get here and I'm badly mangled and twisted, now these are all the languages from all the programs, just so you know. So if you never heard it before, it's from the other fellowship. Right? I'm sinners saved by grace, right? By grace through faith. That's in the Holy Bible. And then our steps come from the Bible and from doctors, right? And psychiatrists. That's where it came from. And I never knock, the grandfather, because I love the father. It's my lineage. Right? So this program was given to me, right? As a gift, right? So now what I realize is that I look at where I was when I got here versus where I am today. So my first 2 weeks clean was too many weeks for me to give back, because I had come a mighty long way in my first 2 weeks with my emotional sobriety, right? So when I come through the doors by way of the justice system, which is one of our principles, I was guided by those principles, right? I was guided right to treatment, and that guided me to where? To Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, right? It guided me to church, back to church where I started at. So growing up, my mother was an evangelist, my father was a deacon, my grandmother was the first pastor here in Las Vegas, a woman pastor. She stood about this tall. They called her little general, and she was very resourceful. She owned businesses, she owned property that she passed down to us, and she loved God and His Son Jesus Christ. And she used to pick me up and take me to Sunday school and the Bible study and the choir rehearsal and the vacation Bible study. So by the time I got 15 years old, I was like, okay, I want a job. And then when I talked to the employer, I told him, I said, make sure that I'm working on Sunday. I was so tired of church, I didn't know what to do. And I was two people. I was a church boy, and then I was also smoking weed with Ramrod. Yeah. across the street. Albert Bowling, one of my best friends, and may he rest in peace, he passed from this disease, right? I was homosexual. I was prejudiced. I was homophobic. Anybody I thought was gay, anything have to do with that, I didn't like you. Right? I was prejudiced against white people, Mexican people, and all the people. I hated the police because it was my problem. I was a male chauvinist pig because my mother wore the pants in the family. My thinking was shot, less than whole. And emotional sobriety means my thinking got to get better. My feelings is connected to my thinking. When I think bad, I feel bad. So through the 12-step process, my thinking got what? Untwisted, right? And it's still untwisting. Right? I haven't arrived, right? So my thinking is a lot better than it used to be, but this is the problem I'm thinking now. I be thinking wrong, but I think I'm thinking right. So then when I start to feel a certain way, then I go check my thinking and see why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. So that's where the digging come in at. Right? It pops back up sometimes. Right? I thought I was clear of it. And then I start feeling a certain way about how you looked at me or what you said to me, and then it'll pop back up again, and I got to go back and take it out. Spiritual surgery. Now there's only one for me that does spiritual surgery. That's God, through his son, Jesus Christ. And I love the fact that God works through people. In the 5th step, it says, admit to who? God. Then another human being. The exactness you're wrong. So I need the human being for God to work through. So that's why the fellowship and the unity of the program is so big. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon NAACA unity, right? Right. So if I don't unify with you, and God work through you to help me through our group conscience, which is a loving God, I don't get the help. Me and God tried it by ourselves. God sounded like me most of the time. You know, a solitary self-appraisal is self-suffice. So a lot of times, you know, I don't want the humiliation that I get or the humility that I need to tell another person what's going on with me. I can tell God and confess to God, but I don't want to confess to you because of my ego. And in the literature, in the AA book, it says our ego has to be what? Smashed. So when I tell God, it's one thing. But when I tell you, it's a whole nother thing. See, my ego gets smashed when I tell you, and I get right size. Now my judgment level ain't so high. See, when I realize how bad I done messed up, right, it makes it easier for me to forgive you when you mess up. Because see, the book that I read, it says that if I don't forgive you, God can't forgive me. Now, that might work for you, but forgiveness is big with emotional sobriety. See, I was mad at my mama because she wore the pants. You know, my daddy gave her the check, man. The whole check. And then when I got ready to get some money from him, guess what? She got the check. She had the nerve to try to pay bills with the check rather than give me more money. And my dad was loose with money. So I thought he was like a punk because he would let my mama run. You ain't hearing what I'm saying. He would let my mama run things. And I ain't like that. I was burnt up and I was sore about it. So in my mind, my thinking, a woman ain't gonna never tell me what to do. I ain't never giving a woman my money. I went to the far extreme. She got to give me what? Her money. It was meant to be seen and not heard. Male chauvinist pig. My thinking was shot. Now, I've been married for almost 23 years. Yeah. Now, do you think I could stay married with that type of thinking? Absolutely not. And now it's like, yes, dear. I became my father. You know, my aunt, my favorite aunt was of alternative lifestyle. I'm talking about my thinking now, which equates to my feelings and my emotions, right? And she, you know, she was my favorite aunt. She had my first rope chain. You know, big thick one too, about 3-4 millimeter. The kind they wear now, like the choker kind, you know. She was a pimp. A woman pimp. Yeah. You know, and she used to run women. Get paid. For real. And I see her knock out a man right in front of our house. Sticks know who my auntie was, Jean Kell. Right? And I didn't like the fact that she was alternative lifestyle because I seen some pictures. There was a lot of trauma in the pictures because it's not only her in the picture, my sister was in the picture and some other family members, and they was all having sex. And I was a little kid looking at a photo album. It scarred me. I didn't want to look at her after that. Right? But then when I got in the 12-step process, I'm talking about emotional sobriety and change of thinking. Yeah, I seen my auntie for who she really was, not for her alternative lifestyle. I seen her love. I seen her heart. See, what comes from the heart goes to the heart. It's the language of the heart. And you can't help people. I think Stick said it. You can't help people mad at them. It's hard to let the sunlight of the Spirit through, or God use you when you're blocked by defect of character or unforgiveness. And I was able to forgive my aunt for being who she was, and because of that, I became her pastor, and I helped her get clean. You know, she had 17 years clean when she passed from COVID 3 years ago. See, my heart still breaks. But I'm so glad that the amends was made and I was able to help her have a better life, and God was able to use me. You know, and see, anytime God healed me, it's for a purpose to help somebody else. While they're walking through the healing, while they're walking through the pain, and they ain't got to get loaded over it. See, I don't know about you. I used to live and live to use. Right? And I still use to live and live to use. I used to smoke crack. It started with cocaine, and then it was crack, right? And I used to like to stuff my pipe with crack or cocaine, right? Now I stuff my pipe with meetings. I stuff my pipe with prayer, meditation, examination, right? Service work, helping others, praise and worship, reading the Bible, reading the NA book, reading the AA book. Any book I can get my hands on, I'll read it just for the day. Guiding principles. It doesn't matter. Anything can help me with my what? Come on, y'all know what it is? Emotional sobriety. I need what I need. And listen, I need y'all so much. I need my manicures. I just like the way she rubs my arms to give me the full. She don't scream. We got a relationship. She's been doing my nails and toes for 8 years. My masseuse has been massaging me for 10 years, the same one. There's a reason why. I need a lot of care. My wife been cooking for me for 22 years. Great cook. And I often tell her, Sticks, if you ain't cooked so good, I'd have been out of here. So I love her cooking. You know, I have friends, I have family, I have people that I rely upon to get what I need in order to live, man. You know, I don't do this on my own. I need each and every one of you. A lot of you are in my life, right? And God works through you to help me. Right? And he worked through me to help you. And I love transparency. Somebody said about transparency and being able, I think it was Lisa talking about, what's your name again? Kevin. You know, about the hugs. You know, I'm convinced that Freddy Krueger can get love in a recovery setting. I mean, full of blood. Blood, give me a knife, Freddie. Have a seat, Freddie. Would you like some coffee, Freddie? Give me a hug. Don't be shy. And you got his blood all on me. Yes. And really mean it. That helps with emotional sobriety. We come in here crazy as a road lizard. Messed all the way up. And there's something about a good, genuine hug, even if you smell or stink.
Yes. I know that's right.
See, that's emotional sobriety when you can hug somebody and you ain't scared that you gonna smell what they smell like. See, we was alive through COVID. It was essential. Huh? And everybody talked bad about us, Lisa. Oh, you killing people. Oh, you this. Oh, you that. Well, they was going to the grocery store like 35 times a week. They already got 45 cases of water. Right? But they going to get some more water, but they couldn't come to a meeting. They couldn't come there. They're talking about us. And you know, most of us didn't even catch COVID, did we, Sticks? We was at meetings every day. 6 feet apart, mask on, Holy Ghost dipped mask. Just so we can carry out God's task. See, I believe in the power of love overturns a multitude of sin. See, I know that love lifted me. When nothing else would do, the love that God has placed in his people is what brought me back from the dead, resurrected me. And there's no grave of sin or defect of character that can hold me down anymore. See, I recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, meaning that ain't no situation hopeless no more. I got action, Kenny. Yeah. All things are possible for those who what? Believe. I believe that Jesus is the Word, and the Word became flesh. And now he dwells among men. When Wayne lived, where God lived, the big book say, deep down inside of every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It's up in there. But see, all the things that have happened to us over the years kind of covered this God up. He wasn't talking, that intuition, it was there, but we couldn't hear it, that thing. Then we get to this process, and then with that flimsy reed becomes a loving hand of God. Come on, man. So now I know that there's a God, and he lives inside of us, and he wants the best for me. And he don't judge me like that. Okay, wait a minute. He made me and know all about me. He knew what I was going to do before I did it. All I got to do is confess and not justify. This is who I am. This is what I've done. I'm gonna throw myself on the mercy of the court. Can you please help me? And then he sends his angels. He sends his ambassadors. He sends people to help me when I ask for it. I have not because I what? Ask not. So when I'm feeling down and my mother passed, my father passed, my auntie passed, my sponsees passed, and my sponsor's very sick right now. He's not a well man. People transition to the other side. I've lost jobs. I've been through bankruptcy. I've been to jail 5 times clean. I said that. I'm going to say it again. 5 times. Because I became emotionally unstable. I just didn't have enough in the tank to keep from jumping on. And God still forgave me. I was on all the newspapers, NAA, and the church paper. And God loved me anyway. Don't mean I can just act any old kind of way, but I have to learn how to forgive myself and know that I got a God that loves me no matter what. That's what keeps me emotionally stable, to know that, guess what? I can't do too much wrong. Past, present, and future, that God won't still love me. And that's what makes me want to love him back so much. That's what makes me want to act right and ask for help. Because I love God, myself, and another human being. Doing to others as others do unto you. And what you put out will come back. So if you give love, guess what? You're going to get some love back. Yeah. If I give everybody in this room a hug, y'all got 1. I got 50. Yeah.
This workshop has been on fire. Okay, we have one more speaker who's coming up. You know, there are people in recovery who can go deep and have deep conversations and are willing to put it out there. Recently, he wrote a book about young and a certain aspect of Alcoholics Anonymous and how it was founded and started and stuff. And he's been, actually, this whole workshop came from having a conversation with him about emotional sobriety, and I felt this inspiration that we should make this into a workshop, and I prayed about who to ask to speak. And so he's our last speaker before we're going to do an Askit Basket panel. The Askit Basket, if anybody has any questions, you'll have another opportunity. You can write it down on any of these pads up here and put it in the basket. We're going to have a 20-minute panel at the end of this. And then we'll do raffles and then we'll close up. But our last speaker is Cody with 12 years. Where is he?
I had to take notes because my brain doesn't work. Also, I just what a great gathering, dude. Like, congratulations, Lisa. Honestly, seriously. I think we should pass the basket again, if you want. I mean, this is a great room, great facility. So let's pass that thing around. Man, this is a lot to follow, to be honest. Like, I feel like I'm out of my league. I just texted my wife and told her that I was nervous. She's sitting right there, so you guys can help me get mad at her. But she said, "Oh, don't worry, you're here for the neurodivergence." So here we are. Also, I just drank a coffee, which was really strong, stronger than I'm used to. So here we go. If I talk too fast, that's why. So this thing about emotional sobriety is really interesting. There's a speaker who says that emotional sobriety is the fourth legacy of Alcoholics Anonymous. Meaning that it's sort of on top of the steps, on top of the traditions, on top of the concepts, right? That Bill introduced this new idea, emotional sobriety. And it's such a fascinating idea. It's captivated psychologists, right? It's very interesting. And we see the power of it right here, because the meetings that I go to that are focused on emotional sobriety, they're rich, right? Like it was said. There's a certain depth that comes along with this topic. I was introduced to emotional sobriety through. I had about 7 or 8 years in sobriety, same, in a relationship, married, and, things looked pretty good on the outside. Like, they looked really good in the rooms, right? We were going to meetings, sponsoring, doing all that stuff, working the steps, calling my sponsor, all of it, doing the inventories. But there was something else happening, like, behind the scenes in our house, and it was really hard to pinpoint and put our finger on it, right? But it was just like, there was like a certain pressure. It was like a pressure cooker, and the pressure was just building and building. And the fights were getting like more intense and more often, right? And when the fights were done, like, we were okay for a while, right? But then we'd start fighting again. And eventually, I was standing outside of the diner one night after a meeting, and my sponsor at the time said something that just it struck me. He said, he was telling us about another of his escapades with a woman half his age. And he says, "I know this sounds crazy, but I'm fully conscious of what I'm doing." And when he said that, of course we rolled our eyes because it looked absurd. But it struck me because deep down inside, that's exactly what I'd been telling myself. That I'm aware of what's going on. I might be cheating. I might be dishonest with money. I might be doing all these things, but I'm conscious of it, right? And I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go. And if she would just let it go, we'd probably be better, right? So I started. My road to emotional sobriety was through therapy, and I want to talk about that because I had a lot to learn. Like, first of all, it's that. There's this weird idea that floats around, at least in AA, probably not as much the other fellowships, that resentment, that fear, that grief, that shame, that these are somehow character defects. And I disagree, right? These are human emotions. And oftentimes what we do with our beautiful 12 steps is we try to sidestep those emotions by just helping someone else, or like letting it go, or like just trust God, right? And then somehow we sort of just try to push these emotions back, just push them down. So that's what I want to talk about today, kind of. And I want to start. I do want to mention another story. this happened about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago. And so I'm driving down the road, I'm talking to my wife on the phone, and I'm telling her about a relationship that I'm sort of trying to spark up with a guy, right? An intimate relationship. I'm trying to like build an intimate relationship with another man. And this is like the scariest fucking thing in the world for me, right? Even to say that, like, oh, intimate with another man, like, what does that mean, right? And as I'm talking to her, I'm telling her, oh, it's great. Like, I feel safe. I feel mutually supported. We're talking about emotions. I'm explaining this, and as these words are coming out of my mouth, I heard myself from like over here. And I got fucking scared. I was like, who is that guy? Who is this guy talking about safety with another man and like emotional honesty and intimacy, right? And, you know, I'd done enough work, so I actually brought that up with Ming when it was happening, and we were like, oh, that's cool. And obviously we talked about it more later. That feeling passed, right? But it taught me something really interesting just about what we're up against here when we're just not in the 12 steps, but as an entire culture, right? Especially as men, to talk about feeling and to talk about emotion and to talk about intimacy. So the way I want to approach this, it's probably a little more prepared, I guess, than the other lectures, which was great. I'm like, this has been fucking phenomenal. You know, so the way I understand this is that we have these emotions, right? And then we have these character defects that tend to come up from beneath the emotions, okay? And I've been able to pinpoint 4 specific character defects. And this is what I want to talk about. And it's very interesting because these character defects, right? They draw this line between not sober emotionally and sober emotionally. The first one, I call this, just bear with me, but this is the logic of the mother, okay? So the way this plays out when I'm not emotionally sober is that I tell myself, if I behave the right way, I will be loved, okay? So this across the board. If I do what my sponsor tells me to do, I'll be worthy of love. If I just do what the group tells me to do, I'll be worthy of love. This logic turns into this idea that you can only get sober in Alcoholics Anonymous and everything else is false, right? It's this thing that we have to be fully engaged in this one thing or else we won't be loved enough. This grows out of our childhood, right? I think we all have this same sort of drive. And I want to say this too, because one of the key themes that's been weaving its way through all of these talks is the idea of value, right? Starting with Lisa, that we want to do the next right thing, not just the next indicated thing, but the next right thing. So then the question I'm saying is, we're going to go a little further. The right thing in whose eyes? Right? Because what my sponsor thought was the right thing was not the right thing for me, it turns out. But I had to go through this struggle of developing my own personal value system to figure this shit out. So with a personal value system then, the logic of the mother says it basically establishes relationships that are mutually supportive, right? So that I do long to be loved and I long to feel safe. And yet, what I'll often do is defend against that, right? Because it feels too intimate or too something. So as I develop emotional sobriety, then I can say, hey, I'm feeling a certain way today, and I could really use a hug, right? That's with emotional sobriety. The next one is and this one's my favorite because I grew up in an emotionally volatile home. Emotions weren't allowed except my mother's emotions were the only ones allowed, and they were very, very just off the chains, right? So what I developed then as a kid was it's called the logic of crisis thinking. Okay, so this means that I build up massive defenses against every single type of emotion, right? I do not let anything in. If the logic of the mother is a mask, if I look a certain way, I'll be loved. This one is if it just says, stay the fuck out. I just build this brick wall. Nobody can get in. That keeps me safe. So my value system then has become a way to keep myself protected. And that's the only value at any cost. When I start to develop emotional sobriety, this shifts, right? And it's tricky, right? But what happens with this one, for me, this is how this is played out. It's that I can still build those walls, but through my and because of my value system, I can make determinations on who actually is safe to let in. So the walls used to not let anybody in. Not my wife, not my kids, not my parents. Nobody was getting in. My therapist was the first one I was able to let in, right? So then I learned this value system. It's like, okay, other people can come in, and also I can leave other people, which we've heard a lot of today. I don't have to stay in a relationship just because it's the right thing to do, right? I don't need to stay in an abusive family relationship or anything like that if it doesn't feel good to me, if it's not serving me. The next one it's called the logic of longing, okay? This one is one that we can all relate to. It's very easy to understand. It's that if I get the girl, if I get the guy, if I get the car, if I get the job, if I get the money, then I'm going to feel okay, right? That this particular individual, this thing outside of me, is going to save me from having to feel my emotions. And so we go chasing around all over town, right? The flip side of this, once I have a value system, is that I can now establish intimacy, right? I can be in a relationship that's mutually supportive. And this is a big one. I stop outsourcing my own feelings to my wife, right? Women tend to do all of the emotional labor for the whole culture, right? And as men, it's our responsibility to figure out, like, what am I feeling right now? And to not just heap that shit on our partners or whoever we're with, our mothers, sisters, whoever. And so when I establish emotional sobriety and I start to get used to what it is to feel, right? It's not just emotions, but it's to feel in general, to create this value system. Then I begin to own my own emotions and I don't just outsource. The next one's really interesting. It's called the logic of the spirit. So John Wellwood was a really great psychologist in the 1980s. He was also involved in a Tibetan Buddhist community. So he was very informed on spirituality. You would almost, from the shit he writes down, you'd think he was in AA, but he wasn't. So, right? Yeah. So he invented a phrase called spiritual bypass or spiritual bypassing. And the idea with spiritual bypassing is that we use spiritual principles, spiritual ideas, and spiritual highs to avoid underlying emotional pain. And so if you look around AA, I'm not going to speak for the other fellowships, but this is permeating our culture, right? The way this looks is like, and I have to say this, in early sobriety, a spiritual bypass is the thing that saves our life, right? I have to bypass. I don't have any fucking dopamine left in my system. Like, I can't handle this feeling, right? I need a spiritual high. Like, take me, whatever. But this becomes a problem 5, 10, 15, 20, etc. Right? When I'm still trying to use these spiritual principles, it's like, oh, I just got in a fight with my wife. Great, I'm going to call my sponsee. How you doing, dude? I don't want to think about myself. Let's talk about you. Right? That's a very common tool that we use, but it's also a spiritual bypass. Right? And we need to know that we're bypassing. This is how we develop emotional sobriety. Look, if you still want to spiritually bypass, go for it. But at least be aware that you're doing it, right? And you could note, this feels a certain way. I'm going to have to look at this later. Like maybe right now it's a little too much. I'm gonna take some distance because I have the tools to do so. But later on, I'm gonna go back into it and let myself feel it. Once we develop emotional sobriety, our relationship to spirituality can change, right? And because now we're engaging in the fellowship, but from like a whole new perspective. We help people, like, you know, I used to never believe that it was possible to help somebody in the program without some sort of underlying selfish motive, right? Except it is possible once a person has a value system. Because then my value system becomes, hey, I want to help you get you a value system. That's what we're doing here. And that just fucking feels good, right? But it also happens it happens on my time, right? Not on, like, honestly, not at 2 a.m. if you just got arrested. Like, no, like, we're going to do this slowly. Emotional sobriety takes a long time to develop. It's not a quick fix the way it was getting sober. We do step 1, 2, and 3, boom, we're in the 4th dimension. Hey, I made it. So, and that kind of brings me back to just, I guess I want to touch on this. How do we get emotional sobriety? What I almost like use the 12 steps as like a symbol here, right? I told you guys my life was a disaster, but I was sober and I looked sober and I had a nice car and a nice house and a nice wife and the whole thing, right? Like I looked like a model AA human being, and I was bragging about how sober I was, right? I'd go to detox panels, doing the whole thing. And Bill says something. He says, we treated our relationship, we treat our sex problems like we would any other problem. Sex is sort of the pinnacle of human intimacy. We cannot treat our relationship problems the way we do any other problem. It doesn't work. This requires a really deep look, not only at ourselves, but also at the relationship itself. Intimacy is a very difficult thing to develop. It's scary, and it takes practice, and we always screw it up. What I did, I screwed up a lot. It's like, you know, like I'll tell some stranger like all my secrets, right? But I'm learning how to do this myself, obviously. But this is how it kind of happens, right? I get to step 6, I'm figuring out what my defects are. Step 7, I'm asking God to remove them. And if I'm able to be honest with myself, I have to admit that God is not removing those defects of character. He's actually giving me that task, right? Which that might sound like heresy. Then the question is, what is the task? And I think I figured out what our problem is. When we got to step 4, our sponsor said, okay, we want you to briefly jot down who hurt you, briefly jot down what they did, briefly jot down how it affects you, and then we're going to talk a lot about your part. And so we have this thing where we rocket to the 4th dimension, but we also rocketed right over the 2nd and 3rd column. And those are actually the place where we can mine emotional sobriety. And so what I had to do was go back through my life, like Bill says, and I did this with a therapist. And I talked about all the injuries and all the harms and all the wrongs done. I didn't need somebody to tell me my part. I figured that shit out in the first week in AA, bro. That shit ain't fucking hard. If that's all you're at with 20 years, bro, come on. That's easy stuff, right? There's other stuff that's way harder. The complexity of an emotional life, right? Like that I can actually be super fucking angry at my parents and still be around them, right? And just be like, ooh, I fucking can't stand what you guys do or did, but it's okay. I don't have to talk about it. And I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just allowing these uncomfortable, negative feelings to exist, right? One thing I do is I look at my moods. Last month when the I guess the moon was in Capricorn, that fucked me up, dude. I called my astrologer. I was like, I'm feeling like a woman. You know? But that's the thing, right? I have to be able to look at these feelings. We're so disconnected. Our culture has trained us to be thinkers, right? But there's this other function that we had, and he talked about it, right? There's this feeling function, and we're so disconnected from it. And the fourth step with the second and third column, they give us a way into that feeling function. And this is what I found. When I started to look at the pain, and I didn't have to fix it, right? The pain unfortunately lodged itself in my heart, and it's not leaving. A lot of people tell me, you could forgive them. You could forgive them. And my response is, I don't want to forgive them. There's something about having this angst inside that I'm okay with, because what I'm mining from that angst is my own personal value system. And so then when I come to a seminar like this and people talk about emotional sobriety, and I'm assuming I'm probably going to disagree with everything that's said, but then I sit down and listen and I fucking agree with everything that was said, right? We're talking about this value system. And for me, I had to go into my own pain before I was going to get it, right? It's hidden in there. The jewel, the great treasure, right? The key to the freedom is in there. When Bill, I'm almost done. Bill, I want to point this out because it's significant. Bill, when he, and I invite everyone to go read the essay, The Next Frontier Emotional Sobriety. You can pull it right up on Google. But when Bill introduces the idea of emotional sobriety, he admits that the 12 steps didn't fix his emotional problems. There's some really great wisdom there for us to look at as a fellowship. We don't need to tell ourselves that we have emotional sobriety, because it's very likely that we don't, especially if we're saying that we do and telling everyone that we know what it is. But Bill offers perhaps some suggestions on how we might get it. But he also is pretty clear. I don't know. Maybe this stuff will work. Maybe it won't. He says this is the next spearhead in AA. We didn't find it, he says. Us old timers, we didn't figure it out. Maybe the youngsters will. Did they? No, they didn't. But are we? It looks like we are. I don't know. I mean, we're having this seminar. We're talking about values. We're talking about feelings. I don't know. Maybe there's some hope. But I just, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, awesome. Okay, so for this next part, we're doing an Askit Basket. And Nelson, can you come up?
I don't know.
It's the same thing we do in common.
All right, guys.
Okay, so
everybody, I'm Nelson. I'm an alcoholic.
Okay, so the way this works is, let me just give you the questions, and you can look at them all.
We could have talked about it before, huh?
We did. We mentioned it many times. Yeah.
That's how good I listen.
Yep. So the way that this works is he's going to ask a question that has been asked from, and you can still put a question if you still have one, but we're going to read the questions. And he's going to ask it, and then anybody that's from the panel can go up and answer the question. And we'll just take it and we'll try to make it through the questions. And if you feel like your question hasn't been answered when we're done, then you can come up and talk to us about it so that you don't leave without having some sort of answers to that.
All right, guys. You know what? Here's one. A lot of blank ones.
Well, it was just to show where to put the papers.
Oh, okay. So, trickster. Man, thanks everybody for talking. Man, that was pretty fucking good. You guys, I got a lot out of it. I really hope that we find the next frontier, or we're heading towards there. Here's a good one. How do I love myself? That's one of the questions. So who's going to answer that?
I can start this off.
You're going to tell them how to love yourself?
Yes. So when I was new to recovery, I guess within the first 7 years, people did a lot of affirmations and putting things on little stickers and putting it on the fridge. And I tried to do that. And I thought that I just needed to tell myself really nice things about myself and believe these things. But what I learned about the use of affirmations, especially for people who have a lot of shame, is that what it's really going to do is it's going to poke at what you really think. And so I could think I'm beautiful and smart and talented or whatever I want to believe, but then what I really think will get angry, and it'll go, no, that's not true. I have whole files about how that's not true, and these are the things. And what's really cool is that the affirmation can be used as an expectorant to show us the things that we need to question about what it is that we're running on, and to feel these feelings. And I've learned that how I've been able to love myself is the recognition, like I said earlier, that I first have to get to know myself, and like Cody said so eloquently, find out what I really value and what really resonates with me. And in doing that, the act of doing that is loving towards myself. It's loving because I'm seeking what resonates. And I'm being kind and compassionate to myself when maybe I didn't experience that before. So it's not what you think. It's not about having a list of all these great attributes that I'm somehow going to brainwash myself into believing. It's about unlearning all the things that are telling myself that I'm not lovable, right? And doing things to express true love and compassion and love and tolerance to another person, and sincerely seeking someone else's highest good and forgiving the story that I have about them and me. It's like when all that stuff gets cleared away, that's all that's left is love.
All right, thank you. Here's one that I can't avoid. So if acceptance is the answer to all my problems, how do I know when to set boundaries? Who wants to tackle that? Come on. I was going to call on you. Come on. Tell us about the value system. Because that's how we can do it, right?
I don't think acceptance is actually the answer to all of my problems. Acceptance is a way I can bypass all of my problems. Because, and the thing for me is here, I mean, was it Dr. Paul that wrote that? I'm in a long-term relationship. And I'm able to accept a lot of things that my wife would rather I didn't accept, right? And I accept those things. I let go and let God, and I'm unable to even converse about them with her, to have like a really hard, intimate conversation about what actually matters to her, right? I grew up in a household where I learned that emotions and people upset and stuff just was garbage. That shit, if my mom's screaming all the time about nothing, then I don't really believe anything anyone says when they're even the least bit upset. Like somebody raises their voice even slightly, you roll your eyes just a little bit, I completely shut down. Because my defenses just go bloop, because I'm thinking that bitch is crazy, right? And I had to unlearn that and like allow so with my therapist, like one of the early sort of exercises was, when she's talking to you and she's upset, why don't you just sit there and try to listen to what she's saying and try to hear what actually she needs? And I was like, oh my God, I'll do it. But my God, it was so hard. I felt like I was going to die. So acceptance isn't the answer. It just doesn't do it. I don't think acceptance is actually the answer. Maybe that's bad news, right? If all you have is AA or something like that. But maybe it's time to branch out. Maybe it's time to check out ACA or another program that talks about these things with a little more clarity and depth than just these kind of addiction recovery programs. So that's what I got.
You just mentioned ACA. Here's an ACA question. I just started ACA. My AA sponsor hasn't done ACA. Should I find a sponsor who has done both? Anybody want to tackle that? I'll tell you what. Nell's an alcoholic, and you know what? I got a sponsee that started ACA, and he found a sponsor in ACA, but doesn't mean that he has to dump me. And if he does, it's okay. We grow in this thing. I actually went out there to listen. I haven't identified, but I do come from a broken home. Look, you know what? I know and I understand that my mom did the best that she could, but she was a single parent, and my dad was absent. And talk about emotions. We didn't talk about emotions in my house. We didn't talk about feelings ever. So I don't know. I'm an adult, and I don't know how to identify all of this stuff. So sure, you know what? I go out there, I check out this other program, other fellowship. I'm not saying anything bad about AA. AA saved my life. I got 23 years sober. My sobriety date is October 23rd, 2001. And it saved my life. My life, I tell you. And it still does. But it's okay to go ahead and, I feel it's okay to go ahead and branch out and check that out. I did 2 years in NA. I got me a black, keychain. And I thought it was great because I'm a trash can, I'm a drug addict, and whoa. But I gotta tell you, even this thing that we did today, look at that. It's a lot of fellowships. There's a reason for that. We're all trying to get better. Anyway, this is what I got.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, this one's related to emotional sobriety. Would you say before or after doing your steps, you can maintain emotional recovery, and why? Who wants to tackle that? Do I understand that?
You want to read it again?
Would you say before or after doing your steps, you can maintain emotional recovery, and why? Yes?
Okay.
Come on, Lisa.
Blah! Yes, you can't. Well, not before, but after. Okay? Because before I was a mental midget, an emotional basket case. There you go. But after I worked the steps, after I lived the steps, I worked the steps and then I lived the steps. That's the way I was taught. And I do it on a daily basis, I don't just do it once and I'm done. I have to apply these things in my life on a daily basis. And when I do that, and I'm going to go back to step 10 because I'm big on step 10, that when I'm constantly looking at myself, being honest with myself, where I'm at fault, where I screwed up, when I'm a bitch for no reason at all, and I make a deal between me and my higher power. Okay, I don't want to be like that no more. Then I do my best not to be like that anymore. And when I do that, then yes, I'm going to maintain a certain level of emotional sobriety. Because I won't be the mental midget anymore. Somebody, I think he said something about step 7. And, my favorite line in the 12 and 12 is in step 6. And in step 6, it says, God is not going to render me white as snow without my cooperation. Mm-hmm. And that was pointed out to me by my sponsor that means you got to work, Lisa. It's like, shit. If you don't want to be a thief, stop stealing. If you don't want to be a liar, stop lying. It's very simple, not always easy. But when I strive for those things, for me, looking at myself on a daily basis, then yes, I'm going to maintain some level of emotional sobriety because I'm not going to be emotionally sober if I'm lying, cheating, stealing, and fucking around. That's not what's going to give me that peace of mind and that peace in my heart. So yes, if I am diligent with working these living these steps, applying these steps on a daily basis in my life, these principles on a daily basis in my life to the best of my ability, then yes, I will maintain some level of emotional sobriety.
Thank you.
I just want to add one thing to this. Like I said earlier, there's a trap in thinking that emotional recovery and emotional sobriety means never feeling big feelings. I have 26 years sober off alcohol and drugs, and when something ancient comes up to heal, there has to be a safe space for it to be expressed and processed. This is how we learn how to live within the day-tight compartments of recovery where we're safe. There are people I can process with and talk to who are safe people to do it. And when I was first in recovery, I had a punching bag. I don't know if you guys ever seen this guy, but he's a dummy. He has no arms and legs, a handsome face, but very, very pissed off look. And I would punch and punch and punch to get out some of this stored aggression, to give myself a safe place. So I would scream into pillows, because anger was one of my biggest emotions. It was I grew up in a volatile house too. And I would allow myself to cry. I got myself teddy bears. I would allow myself to have a teddy bear and allow myself, with nobody else around, to just hold this teddy bear and allow myself to just grieve and cry and allow these emotions to come out. I was not always walking around trying to be on, but I also respected that if I was at a job or if I was in front of somebody or interacting, that where I was not safe, like Cody was saying. And I would say, I table this, but I am going to feel this, I'm going to deal with this. And I would journal and I would talk about what's really going on, but I would watch the temptation to make it bigger. And I would say, what is the truth? And I would allow myself to feel my feelings and then get new insights out of it. This is emotional sobriety and emotional recovery is not a 12-step program condoned stuff your feelings spiritually behavior. It is, thank you. It is how can we have the safe space, Kevin, I got the chills. We got this safe space to be able to now, because we aren't back where these things first started, to now re-look at this and be able to safely feel these feelings and question some of the stuff that's going on with us. We have to be willing to, and we can't be judging ourselves for feeling feelings. That's one of the first things that has to go. This is a natural thing. It was unnatural that we learned to stuff it. It was unnatural that we needed to do drugs and alcohol to help us stuff it. So we're undoing it, we're reversing it, we're unlearning some of that toxic behavior. And by feeling our feelings, we give permission to everyone else to feel theirs too.
Thank you. I gotta tell you, the common thread that I hear is digging deep. Because I got emotional sobriety so long as I stick to the script, right? I mean, I stick to the script, and I got some emotional sobriety. Don't do all the shit that they said, But when I go ahead and, when something comes up, or something brings you back, and you don't know how to handle it, I want to see how you handle that, So it's also a growing thing. I love what Stick said, emotional maturity. It's by growing one day at a time, showing up and being willing. I like that, being willing to dig deep, bring it back, and the safe place, I hope. Yeah, I'll tell you something about the safe place. I remember and this is how, how broken I was, when I was doing my 5th step with my sponsor, and this is 10 years ago. When I was doing my 5th step, with my 17th sponsor, and we're talking about my mother, and the guy says, Nelson, it's safe. You can cry. And I couldn't bring it down, and I could cry in my car all day long. I could boo-hoo cry and but I couldn't cry. I couldn't do it in front of this guy. Even though he said it's safe, I still felt like I couldn't. So how do I get rid of that? This is growing up. growing one day at a time. You know, she's seen me cry. Fuck, you know, I mean, I could cry in front of her, no problem. You know. All right. Anyways, here's it's probably well, there's a couple more. This one I don't understand this one. How do I get past being condescendent with someone in trauma? I'm trauma bonded with.
How do I get past being codependent?
Codependent.
With someone I'm trauma bonded with.
There you go. See? How do I get past being codependent with someone I trauma bonded with?
Okay, I'll say something to this too.
Yeah, somebody
Anybody
might
else?
want to go ahead and. All right.
Okay.
All right.
That's you, Lisa.
Okay, as was mentioned, everybody comes into our life for a reason, season, or a lifetime, and people are perfect mirrors. I really love Kevin's example where in the meeting he went and found the person that he liked the least. I love that there was 80% of people in there. And that in seeking to love this person and to understand this person, he forgave stuff about himself in it. However, I also feel like, you know, you can't get clean in a mud bath, and if your relationships are all because it feels normal and comfortable in a self-acknowledged sick kind of way, then there has to be some hard steps to detach enough and to take the desire, the addiction of that, and the sense of responsibility for that relationship, and the feeling that you leaving would cause them harm or abandonment. When we're trauma bonded, we have this sticky, unhealthy need and identification, and there's so much rich stuff in that we could take to a sponsor, to a therapist, or to anything to start to unpack so that we can see, why is this that I'm feeling this connected with this person? To just try to control the behavior by saying I'm being codependent, it's great to acknowledge that this is the effect of it, but we got to get down to cause and condition and to recognize, you know what, I'm where I'm supposed to be, and for some reason, this is the relationship or the friendship or the situation I'm finding myself in. And what is coming up for me in this? And how can I process it so that I can be freer and freer if I can't physically detach from this relationship?
Thank you. You know, come on.
Inspired you.
Yeah. Lisa always inspires me. This is a really important question because it can be a very dangerous situation. So I think practical matters could be warranted here is like check out ACA. There's a meeting on Monday night in Summerlin. It's a good one. I've been to it. That I might start there. Jung he taught something that I'm fascinated by, but it's that like we have these unconscious components, right? Like I would have like an unconscious feminine component, and my partner, whoever I choose, or whoever it chooses, right, has an unconscious masculine component, safe, right, in a heterosexual relationship. But the thing that's fascinating is that those unconscious personages are having a relationship.
Yes.
We are literally along for the ride
Yes.
until we do some real serious work. And so we can start with like ACA kind of breaks down, they get down into that stuff a little bit. They talk about feelings. I love ACA because they're speaking this language, right? But also, I mean, therapy and stuff, these kinds of things, like it, you know, our spiritual program cannot solve problems that are psychological in nature. They just can't. They're not designed to. It's not that they don't work good enough. These programs work perfectly. Like this spirituality that we have here is the most advanced spirituality, I'm willing to say this, that the world has ever known. We have rocketed so fucking far into the fourth dimension, we've lost our way, right? So we have to come back down to the earth and be in these human relationships, right? And we need help to do that. The culture's not even that great at it, to be honest. Like it's, you got to search for a good therapist. You got to search for a good sponsor. You got to find a good church. Like you got to work for this shit. It doesn't come easy. So.
Thank you.
All right, guys, one last question, and we'll get to the raffle. Who wants to win some money? All right. This one's a touchy one. You know, how do I forgive my abuser?
Oh.
I knew it.
That's for me. Yeah, because you know my story.
Yep.
Okay, more tears. How do I forgive my abuser? When I was 3 years old, I had a brother that was 19 years older than me, and he started to sexually abuse me until I was 13. And one of the things I had to do was I had to learn to forgive him. I also had to make amends to him, but that's a whole different story. But I had to recognize that he was sick. And him being sick, he kind of had, I don't want to say no control, but in a sense he didn't. He was schizophrenic, bipolar, and a couple other things. And he was sick. And one of the things my sponsor told me, and this goes to the other question about loving yourself, was I was so down on myself all the time. And I hated myself. I hated myself because I allowed my brother to do this to me. And I was the biggest piece of shit walking because that's what he told me. And she said to me, she said, let me ask you something. When you were, pick an age, any age, 12 years old, did you put pen to paper and say, when I grow up, I'm going to do this, 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 and this? And I said, well, no, I didn't. She said, well, why did you do it? I didn't know. I had no answer for that. The answer was because you're an alcoholic, Lisa, and you are a sick person. With that explanation from her, I began to forgive myself. And in beginning to forgive myself, I began to love myself. But I also was learning to forgive other people that were sick. You know, in the big book, it talks the fourth step prayer, the sick man's prayer, you know, save me from being angry. Well, I was angry all the time at this man for what he did to me. But I had to bring forgiveness into the mix. And once I began to recognize that he was sick, just like I was sick, just like my mother was sick, my father was sick, because we all have the same mother, I think, you know? And we may even all have the same father, I don't know. But when I began to see that these people were sick, whether it was my brother who abused me so bad, or my mother, or my father, I could begin to forgive them. I had a hard time forgiving myself. My sponsor was such a bitch. I always say she was a sneaky bitch. One of the things she said to me when I told her how difficult it was for me to forgive myself, she said to me, what do you believe that your higher power is? And I said, well, he's loving and kind and forgiving. And she goes, okay, so your higher power is forgiving, so your higher power forgives you. I said, yes. And she said, so you're still putting yourself above your higher power because you won't forgive you. You refuse to forgive yourself. Bitch. But she was right, you know, because I had this story that I was the biggest piece of shit walking and that I didn't deserve any grace. We all deserve grace. Every one of us. I'm sorry. So, well, I am, but you know, whatever. So if I'm not able to forgive other people, it's because I choose to be not believing that there's a power greater than myself out there. I'm still choosing to place myself in that position of being greater than this omnipotent being. Whatever I call it, it doesn't matter. And for me, if I'm going to put myself in that position of being greater than this omnipotent being, I don't need to be here. You know, I don't need you people because I'm better than all of you again. And when I become better than you, and I don't need you, I don't need God, I don't need the program, I don't need forgiveness, I'm going to be out there in the street. You know, And I don't want that anymore. So for me, that's how I had to learn to forgive. Is I first had to learn to forgive myself. I had to understand that these people were sick and that I was sick too, and that I was not a piece of shit. That was just a story I told myself, and there was no truth to it. Well, maybe a little bit of truth, but no, there really wasn't any truth to it. Not to the degree that I felt that I didn't deserve. You know, the only thing I deserved was a rock to crawl back under. So, I don't know if that answers the question or not, but...
All right, guys, let's go ahead and win some money.